Welcome to the Buffalo Sports Conversation Room. I'm your host, Jamie Malloy, ready to talk about Week 15's football games. But first, I'd like to bring on my co-host, Joe Dalio, then our special guest, Gene Battaglia. Gene is a play-by-play announcer for 97.5 in The Fan in Rochester, and I met him broadcasting at St. John Fisher football games. So first, here's Joe. Hey, Joe, how's it going?
All right, it is going great, Jamie. How you doing tonight?
I'm good. How awesome was that win over Detroit? I mean, that was a big bounce back win against a quality opponent after losing to the Rams.
Yeah, people are saying potential Super Bowl preview. And I tell you what, if that's the kind of game we get with these two teams in the Super Bowl, if that happens, I think we're in for a treat. So, yes, like you said, excellent bounce back win, and we'll certainly be talking about that later in the show. So we look forward to doing that.
Yes, we will. But anyway, now let's bring in our special guest, Mr. Gene Battaglia. So, folks, here's Gene.
Hey, Jamie, how are you tonight?
Good. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for coming on with us tonight, Gene.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It's a good time to be talking Buffalo sports here.
Yeah, but before we do that, would you like to tell our very small but dedicated listeners a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm lucky enough to work for a radio station in Rochester, 95.7 The Fan in Rochester. Co-host of the Sports Bar from 3 to 6 in the afternoon. So if you're looking for Bills talk, we're doing that every afternoon on your drive home. And since 2008, I've had the opportunity to call St. John Fisher football, basketball, and lacrosse. And the Cardinals are certainly one of the teams we love in Rochester. And I got to know Jamie a little bit. So over the years, Jamie being a big supporter of Fisher Athletics. So Jamie, thanks for having me on here tonight.
Absolutely. And we're both gonna our audience is gonna love listening to your they're gonna be able to pick your brain and what you know too. So anyway, are we ready to talk about the Thursday night matchup between the 7 and 6 Los Angeles Rams and the 6 and 7 San Francisco 49ers in what Joe calls Santa Clara, California?
Let's do it.
All right. So with 10:01 left in the first quarter, Jake Moody kicked a 53-yard field goal to bring the score to 3-0 San Fran. Then with 1:05 left in the first half, Joshua Carty kicked a 48-yard field goal to end the half, tying the score at 3-all. With 8:23 left in the third quarter, Moody kicked his second field goal, this time from 47 yards, to bring the score to 6-3 49ers. With 13:38 in the fourth quarter, Carty kicked his second field goal, this time for 23 yards, knotting the game at 6-all. With 9:28 left in the fourth quarter, Carty kicked his third field goal, this time for 27 yards, breaking the tie and giving the Rams their first lead, 9-6. With 18 seconds left in the game, Carty sealed the game with his fourth field goal, this time for 29 yards, bringing the final score to 12-6 Rams. So, Joe, what a difference a week makes. When the Rams played the Bills, it was an offensive shootout. But this week, it was just field goal kicking from both teams. What does San Fran's defense do differently to hold the Rams to only field goals?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And we see it all the time, not only in the NFL, but in so many other sports. When a team goes crazy offensively one week, how often do we see the next week a big difference? And it's almost like a team scores themselves out almost. Now, it seems like that's not happening with the Bills this year because you would think it would on several occasions. But I think part of it was just a fact of the Rams scoring 45 points the week before. And I don't know. Just like I said, it seems that it happens all the time. A baseball team scores 10 runs tonight and they score 1 or 2 the next day. A hockey team scores 6 tonight and they score 1 or 0 the next night. It seems like that happens all the time. So I don't really know what the 49ers did to slow down the Rams that the Bills couldn't do. But I don't know. I was looking forward to this game. I thought this was going to be a great game here because, the Rams are coming off a great win against the Bills. They're still with an outside chance to win the division here or at least get in the playoffs. And you got the Santa Clara 49ers that are holding on for dear life. And as bad as this season has been for them, still with a chance to string a couple of wins together and get into the playoffs and potentially even win the division. So I figured they're going to come out desperate here, especially playing at home. And it just didn't happen. Again, it seemed like the Rams scored themselves out the week before. I don't know what the deal was with the 49ers. It just, they couldn't get anything going. So I was a little disappointed in this game. There were no touchdowns. I was expecting an offensive show here and didn't get that. So I guess one thing we can say, now I'm always impressed, again, Dylan, another member of our network here, predicted in the beginning of the season that the 49ers would not make the playoffs. And we all called them crazy. That's going to happen. I think the Santa Clara 49ers are officially dead here, especially with a performance like this and some tough games coming up. So, the Rams had some good performances here. I've said it before on this show. I'll say it again. I think Kyren Williams is one of the most underrated running backs in the league, and he had over 100 yards in this game. Puka Nacua, he doesn't have a bad game, as long as he stays healthy. He had another excellent game, 97 yards here, continues to excel. So, the Rams are in a good spot here. I'm not sure they're winning this division, but they're helping their playoff cause, and that's for sure. So, again, I don't know what the 49ers did that the Bills couldn't, but just a little too much of a blah game for me here.
And Gene, how do you think the San Francisco's defense actually responded against the Rams offense to keep it a low-scoring game?
I think a couple things here, Jamie. One, this was a game where, this is what Thursday Night Football, for the most part, is like. It's very difficult for teams to play on Sunday to turn around on Thursday. And over the years, we've seen poor quality on Thursday Night Football. It's just very difficult. And I think that was part of it. On a kind of a wet, damp night, you saw just some poor football. The other thing, too, for the 49ers, the storyline to come out of this game was Devondre Campbell quitting on his team. We have to be careful and cautious when, a player, we got to make sure this wasn't about injury. This wasn't a mental health issue. This was literally a player that was upset that he wasn't in the starting lineup. And when he was asked to come in, he refused. You're a paid professional. So I guess he's not going to be a paid professional anymore because the storyline out of San Francisco this week, the team putting him on the list where he is now not still on the team, but being suspended basically. And that will allow the 49ers to perhaps recoup some of his signing bonus on this for making a very poor choice during that game. And that's kind of indicative of the way the 49ers season has gone so far.
Yep. And us Bills fans can remember when Vontae Davis retired at halftime. So I'm sorry. I hate to be laughing at that, but that was still crazy that he did that.
It's sad. But what was different about that, Jamie, was Vontae Davis did it, and not a lot of us, not even the team, knew what was going on. He just kind of disappeared. Word got around after the game. This was during a game that a player refused to go in while he was on the sideline. So why did you even dress? I don't know. But kind of sad for the 49ers, but they've had their chances over the years here. So,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. So now moving on to the Sunday 1:00 game between the 5-8 Dallas Cowboys facing the 3-10, but somewhat improved and young, battle-tested Carolina Panthers team. With no scoring in the first quarter, the Cowboys put the first points on the board in the second quarter with Cooper Rush drive taking 5:45 off the clock with 10 plays, ending in a 14-yard touchdown pass to CeeDee Lamb to bring the score to 7-0 Cowboys with 9:07 left in the second quarter. With 4:09 left in the second quarter, Brandon Aubrey kicked a 52-yard field goal, extending the Cowboys' lead to 10-0. I think there's a new nickname for him, Automatic Aubrey.
Yeah.
With 42 seconds left in the half, Bryce Young threw a deep pass to Jalen Coker for an 83-yard touchdown to cut the lead to 10-7 Cowboys. On 5 plays, taking 2 minutes and 4 seconds off the clock in the third quarter, Rush passed an 11-yard shoulder throw to Jalen Tober to increase the Cowboys' lead 17-7. On a 78-yard drive, taking 3 minutes and 28 seconds off the clock, Rush found Jalen Brooks in the end zone on a 17-yard touchdown pass with 7:05 left in the third quarter, bringing the score to 24-7 Cowboys. With 14:50 left in the fourth quarter, Aubrey made his second field goal of the afternoon, this time for 45 yards to bring the score to 27-7 Cowboys. On a 12-play drive using 4 minutes and 59 seconds, Young ran it in for a 6-yard touchdown, cutting the Cowboys' lead to 27-14. With 6:12 left in the fourth quarter, Aubrey hit his third field goal of the afternoon, this time from 41 yards to increase the Cowboys' lead to 30-14, and that is how the game would end. So, G, what did you think about the Cowboys' defense playing hard, creating all those turnovers?
Oh, it's about time, right? It's like, where's this team been? Granted, like, let's be honest, it is Carolina too. I know they've been, showing some spark here, which is good for their fan base and everything. But I don't think you get a cookie even still for beating the Carolina Panthers, even if you're Dallas. So Dallas did what they were supposed to do. I'm not sure if you agree with me or Joe on that, but it's a year where you wonder what could have been for Dallas. And when we look back at Dallas, Jamie, we're going to say, oh, well, it was the injuries. How could you win without Dak Prescott? And that's certainly a valid point, but there are some games they left on the table this year. I'm thinking back to last week against Cincinnati, but they did what they had to do. Doesn't excite me all that much that they won in Carolina.
I know. If you think about it, they were one block punt away from being 7-7, beating Carolina, and they're 6-8. But I look at it as at least they're not giving up, even though it's clearly a lost season and everything. And I think it still bodes well for when Dak gets healthy next year, and they finally they get a new running back to complement Rico Dowell. But Joe, what do you think about the Cowboys offensive line finally getting it together in the last 3 games, helping Rico Dowell get 100 yards rushing? And that's where I think they've actually lost most of their games, because even when Dak was in there, they couldn't run the football to save their lives, and Dak had to throw like 70 times a game, and their offense wasn't this year, at least wasn't built for that like it was in the past.
Yeah, it's an excellent example about how the offensive line affects so much of the offense. And like you said, them playing better here, certainly getting better results. So I'm not surprised at this game, to be honest with you. I mean, again, Carolina's been playing well, and like you said, there's reason for optimism with them. But they were actually favored in this game, Carolina, and I thought that was a mistake. And I kind of took advantage of it, that they say when you think the wrong team is favored, best thing to do, bet against them. And that's exactly what I did. But I didn't expect the Cowboys to win by as much as they did. But a very solid performance. They're a much better team on the road. So that's another reason I thought they'd come out and do well in this game. And, the quarterback there, Rush had 3 touchdowns. So solid performance with him. And as you say, a lot attributed to the improvement of the offensive line. So I was not surprised by this result. And, we say, again, lost season. But if you can kind of go out on a high note here and win these games, going out, then as you guys were mentioning there's reason for optimism next year. And again, if Carolina can continue to improve and go out on a high note too, they would have something to look forward to for next season as well.
And the one thing that the Cowboys can be optimistic about is their cap space. Right now, this year they had $20 million projected in cap room, and that was even after signing Dak
Mhm.
and even after signing CD Lamb and going into next year, they're still going to have $24 million to be able to pay Micah Parsons and to be able to improve the team there too. So, but we did kind of have a feeling, Joe. We didn't think the running game would get better, but it did. It was just too little, too late. But we did say that offensive line would improve because it was young to start out the season, and even with the injuries, it's young. To having 3 rookies, but we know the Cowboys. That's the one thing they've done well is they've had a reputation of drafting off an offensive line and having it come together in the last 10 years. And this could be another line where it comes together and could be a staple on the team for in the future.
And I like the job Dowdle's done in the last few weeks too. You know, he's steadily improving as a running back, and he's been solid for them. So that's a positive step as well.
And I'm going to say this again, Joe. We know the running backs are getting better, but like I don't blame. You could say, well, what if the Cowboys didn't get rid of Tony Pollard? They had to do that because, like I said, we don't pay the running backs anymore. And I always say that at that time they were a dime a dozen, and it allowed them to fix their offensive line by not paying him. So that's good. Now that Dowell could be the future back, and hopefully we hear the name Ashton Genty called on draft day by the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
That would be an awesome pair with him and Dowell. That would be a great tandem for 2025.
Certainly would.
Yep. Anyway, now moving on to our game of the week, the main event, the 425 matchup between the 10-3 Buffalo Bills taking on the 12-1 Detroit Lions. Scoring on his 10th rushing touchdown of the season, Josh Allen squeaked it in a 1-yard run, taking 3 minutes and 6 seconds off the clock, giving the Bills the lead 7-0. With 2:05 left in the first quarter, Allen hopped, skipped, and jumped and did everything but basically crawl into the end zone for his second touchdown of the evening on a 78-yard drive, increasing the Bills' score to 14-0. With 13:45 left in the second quarter, Jared Goff passed a 12-yard touchdown to Tim Patrick, cutting the score to 14-7 Bills. With his 12th rushing touchdown of the season, James Cook ran it in for a 6-yard touchdown with 8:19 left in the second quarter, bringing the Bills' lead to 21-7. With 3:08 left in the second quarter, Dan Skipper, awesome name for a lineman, which is pretty cool, caught a 9-yard touchdown pass from Goff, cutting the Bills' lead to 21-14. With 13:20 left in the third quarter, Cook scored his second touchdown of the afternoon, this time for 41 yards on a 4-play drive, increasing the Bills' lead to 28-14. With 3:34 left in the third quarter, Khalil Shakir scored his 4th receiving touchdown this season when Allen passed him a 3-yard touchdown, bringing the score to 35-14. With 1:52 left in the third quarter, Goff found Amon-Ra St. Brown in the end zone on a 66-yard touchdown pass, cutting the Bills' lead to 35-21. With 14:06 left in the fourth quarter, Tyler Bass kicked a 50-yard field goal, which made up for the missed field goal at the end of the first half to increase the Bills' lead to 38-21. With 12:08 left in the fourth quarter, Goff passed to Jahmyr Gibbs for his 3rd receiving touchdown of the year, bringing the score to 38-28. And with 11:55 left in the fourth quarter, Allen found Ray Davis for a 5-yard touchdown to bring the score to 45-28. With 8:07 left in the fourth quarter, Gibbs ran it in for his second touchdown of the afternoon, cutting the Bills' lead to 45-35. With 2:06 left in the fourth quarter, Bass kicked a 41-yard field goal, increasing the Bills' lead to 48-35. With 16 seconds left in the game, Goff found Jamison Williams in the end zone for a 3-yard touchdown, but it would be too little too late as time would expire, with the score ending Bills 48, Lions 42. The Bills hung on to snap the Lions' 11-game winning streak. So, G, what do you think about the Bills scoring at least 40 points in back-to-back games?
This is magnificent. I mean, Joe, we've lived our whole lives, and Jamie, just the quick history lesson. Even in the Super Bowl years, you didn't see an offense that just executed the way the Bills are moving the ball right now. Josh Allen is the league's MVP. The race is over in that regard. I can't imagine a scenario in which Allen doesn't win the MVP. And in your rundown there, Jamie, I thought there was one key play. This was before the Ray Davis touchdown. They get down there because, well, Matt Collins returns an onside kick. Mm-hmm. When are you you should never kick onside when there's 12 minutes left of the game. There's only 2 scores. And basically Dan Campbell, the Lions head coach, is saying, I don't think we can stop these guys. Our only chance to get another possession is to try this. Mm-hmm. That's how much respect Josh Allen in this offense is getting right now. Now, if we look ahead, we're going back to Buffalo, and the weather's going to be a little different, and these opponents are going to be a little lesser. But it is so encouraging that if they can kind of just keep this up, whatever opponent you're going to face in the postseason, name a team. Okay, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Kansas City. Even on the other side, we just saw the Rams and the Lions. Bills offense can play with anybody, and they can win here in this league, Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So, Joe, did you start to get nervous with Goff and the Lions starting to make a comeback in the fourth quarter?
You know what? I did. As well as things were going for the Bills, the Lions just wouldn't go away. And they got that touchdown close. They had tried unsuccessfully on that one onside kick. And then I said, they're going to get another one here. And why do I think something is going to go wrong here? And, even as well as things are going, like I said, but the Bills did hold on there and did extremely well here. So, big win. And Gene said some things that I completely agree with here is, a couple of weeks ago, we shouldn't look ahead too much, obviously, but a couple of weeks ago, I'm looking ahead to potential playoff matchups and things like that. And I said, there's some scary teams out there that not a lot of people are talking about. A team like Denver, who's got an excellent defense, or, the Chargers that not too many people are talking about. And it's funny because today, or even after this game, I was thinking about what Gene just said. I was like, a good defense like Denver's with the Bills and the way they're operating does not scare me. Even Baltimore, a team like that, none of these teams scare me at this point because, again, as Gene just said, they could play with anybody and they can win against anybody. And they're proving that more and more, every game here. Now, you like high-scoring games. How about this in the last 2 weeks? Bills 90, opponents 87. Now, they're going to have to do something about that 87 points in 2 games if they're going to go far. But, Josh Allen is just unstoppable. And I've been saying the same thing, since the game, too. Give Josh Allen the MVP right now. I don't see a scenario either where anything changes enough to cause anybody else to get that. I think everybody knows it. Vegas knows it. Everybody does. And Josh Allen deservedly is going to win this award finally that he's been in the running for several years here. I knew James Cook was going to come out and play well too, because as I said, it's especially in the NFL, it seems like when a team does so amazing one week, it seems like they don't do well the next week. And even with players, it seems like when a player like James Cook has 21 yards, which is well below his average in one game, in a game with the Bills scored 42 points, by the way, I had a feeling that he was going to be used a lot and he was going to come out strong here. And he certainly did. 105 yards, 2 touchdowns. And this was just all hands on deck. I mean, obviously Josh Allen with four more touchdowns, 2 pass and 2 rush, 362 yards passing, another 68 rushing. But it wasn't just him. Again, I mentioned Cook, Ty Johnson, the running back. has over 100, I think he had 114 yards receiving, and did extremely well there. We talk all year about the fact that everybody eats. 9 different receivers catching passes for the Bills here. Now, you got to give credit to the Lions too. You know, I guess if there was one player, I was saying Saquon Barkley, as if Josh Allen didn't get the MVP, you know, it would be Barkley. A lot of people aren't talking about Jared Goff, and he had another MVP type game here. 494 yards, 5 touchdowns. Again, I don't think it's going to be enough because I think Josh Allen gets this, but hats off to him. Hats off to the Lions that just kept fighting. I agree. I think Campbell felt like, I don't know how I could stop this team. I don't think we can. But yet they stayed in this game and gave themselves a chance to win. I'm in the middle of a fantasy league playoff right now, a 2-week playoff with Ross St. Brown on my fantasy team. So certainly helped my cause, even though I'm still losing after 1 week here. But 14 catches, 193 yards, and a touchdown. Excuse me, incredible performance there. That's about 39 points. Sam Laporta got involved, 111 yards receiving. Jahmyr Gibbs, 83 yards and a touchdown. Believe it or not, you got this 1-2 punch with the Lions. Unfortunately, now a 1 punch, with Montgomery going down for the season. Very sad to see. The Lions, one of the best rushing teams in the NFL, only had 48 yards rushing. You know, and the knock against the Bills a lot, excuse me, has been their rushing defense sometimes. Giving up only 48 rushing yards against one of the best rushing teams in the league, I think that's a positive step for the defense. You know, you talk about them giving up 87 points in 2 games, but if they're going to give up only 48 yards to excellent rushing offenses, again, step in the right direction. So, you know, again, sky's the limit for this team. And we keep talking about it, and you don't want to get too excited too quick, but the stars are starting to align, you know, for them with some of the other stuff going around in the AFC and some of the key injuries that we saw over this past weekend. You know, as Bills stay healthy, the stars are aligning for them, and I think there's a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, Joe, if I can go back to talking about the defense here too, because it's not all sunshine, rainbows, cotton candy, everything. That is a little cause for concern that you gave up that many points. Right. How much do you feel is it, all right, we can just chalk this up to you don't have Rasul Douglas and Taylor Rapp and DeMar Hamlin and Matt Milano leaves with a groin injury and Dorian Williams went out. So you're down at some point 5 key guys on the defense. Is it just that simple, or might we just have a defense that is kind of average? And when you're facing top shelf offenses like the Rams and like the Lions, this could be problematic perhaps.
Yeah, it's an excellent question. And I honestly think it's a little bit of both. You know, that's a good point because I forgot about that. They were down to 3rd string defenders in some cases here, you know, especially at linebacker and stuff. So it certainly doesn't help that some of their best guys are out, and hopefully not long term. And I get the feeling that most of them are going to be back soon. And I guess the fact too that it's certainly not a bad defense, but maybe, I think we can all admit it's not one of the elite defenses in the NFL either. So I think it's a combination of both. Great thing about Bills coaching, though, is it seems like they're very good at making adjustments. And again, you're going against 2 of the best offenses in the league, so that certainly has something to do with it. We'll see what happens now going against some of the weaker offenses in the league for the next few games here. So it'll be interesting to see, but I think they'll make the adjustments. I think they're smart enough to know what we need a better defensive effort overall if we're going to go far in the postseason here. But I think they're fully capable of doing it, and hopefully they can get these guys back. There's no other major injuries here, and I guess we'll get the answer to that question, as the weeks go on.
Mm-hmm. So now it is time for us to pick our predictions for next week's game that I will just be going to. Joe, if I remember correctly, in the beginning of the season, we both took the Bills to beat the Patriots. Do you still feel that way, or what's your prediction?
Yeah, you know how the Bills are have had a tendency to come out slowly a little bit, especially against some of the weaker competition, like Arizona, although Arizona's proven that they're not exactly weak competition, but Tennessee, some of the other games here where they maybe came out a little slowly. And I wouldn't be surprised, especially after a big win like this. I think it's just human nature to come out a little slow again. I think though, same thing happens. I think they eventually take over. They get their heads in the game here. I think still score a lot of points. My prediction here is Bills 31, but I think the Patriots will get 17 out of this.
So you got 31-17, Joe. Yes. Buffalo. Gene, what do you think?
I think kind of the same storyline as Joe. And part of the story here, too, is the only thing left in the AFC for the Buffalo Bills to go grab is that 1 seed. Mm-hmm. Kansas City plays on the day before. So that, the Bills will know kind of where they stand. And if Kansas City wins that, then everything else would have to break. So what I'm saying is, the 1 seed's looking a little distant now. So I could see the Bills taking their foot off the pedal here just a little bit. But eventually, the fact that you're home and with the home crowd, that should be enough. And the fact that you've got this string of games consecutively with 30 or more points, the fact that you can get it down to 9, these guys won't say this heading into the game that matters. Oh, no, that matters. So I have this Bills 35-13. Maybe it's close for about a quarter, but every Patriots supporter I talked to this week are tell me how this could happen for you guys. They're like, no, you'll win comfortably in this game. So
yeah, I think the Bills, I agree with both you guys. I think they start out slow, but they're in the cold. They're at home. I think the Bills win this game. I'm going to say 35-21.
Okay.
So moving on to the Sunday night 8:20 competition between the 9-4 Green Bay Packers challenging the 8-5 Seattle Seahawks. With 9:19 left in the first quarter, Josh Jacobs ran it in for a 1-yard touchdown to bring the score to 7-0 Packers. With 1:54 left in the first quarter, Romeo Doubs caught a 13-yard pass from Jordan Love to bring the score to 14-0 to close out the first quarter. With 12:59 left in the second quarter, Jason Myers kicked a 48-yard field goal, cutting the Packers' lead 14-3. With 9:21 left in the second quarter, Brandon McManus kicked a 39-yard field goal to increase the Packers' lead 17-3. As time expired, McManus kicked his second field goal of 21 yards, ending the half at 20-3 Green Bay. With 6:20 left in the third, Myers kicked his second field goal of the evening, this time for 45 yards, cutting the Packers' lead to 20-6. With 1:36 left in the third, McManus kicked his third field goal at 23 yards, ending the third quarter with the Packers leading 23-6. With 11:16 left in the fourth quarter, Zach Charbonnet ran the ball in for a 24-yard touchdown, cutting the Packers' lead 23-13. With 4:59 left in the game, Doubs put the finishing touches on the win as he hauled in a 22-yard touchdown pass from Love to bring the final score to 30-13. So, G, what did you think about the Packers going into a hostile environment and coming out with a win on the road?
Can I just say this, Jamie? And again, maybe this dates me. I'm not a fan when teams like the Packers go all alternate uniform and everything, where I got to turn it on. I'm like, what am I watching here? And like, for that matter, I'm not a fan of the lime green Seattle uniform. So that was aesthetically a tough watch, but seems to me that the Packers might be that team that you don't want to face in the NFC if you're a divisional winner, and they're going to be a wild card the way it's looking right now with Jordan Love, getting it together. But Jacobs is the difference here. He's that battering ram, so to speak, that you could put between the tackles there. They took out that game. You could have turned off at halftime. Probably a lot of people did, Jamie. So to me, I'm looking ahead here and I'm thinking, boy, how would the Packers look against the Buccaneers, say, in the first round, or the Rams in the first round? And I'm not ruling out Green Bay getting to the Super Bowl. I'll put it that way. This is an impressive team. But the one thing about hostile environment, I think we learned this from, when the Bills went out there. I don't think the 12s are all that out in Seattle. They get a lot of credit for being this hostile, mean environment. And it wasn't that way for when the Bills went out. And I don't think it was that way when the Packers went out either. Maybe that's just a fan base that's a little complacent right now.
Mm-hmm. And Joe, what do you think were the causes for all the Seattle field goals that they couldn't finish and turn into touchdowns?
Again, I don't have an answer for that. And, this is another game that I was a little disappointed in. I thought it was going to be, a hard fought, go to the wire kind of game. And, we didn't have the Thursday night excuse for this one. Now, this was a little more exciting than the Thursday night game. And it's funny that you said that, Gene, because I said I got frustrated and I turned the game off at halftime and went to bed. So, and I completely agree. Can we just wear our regular uniforms here? I don't want to see these alien uniforms and, these alternate teams have like 8 alternate jerseys now. And I'm old fashioned too. And I just want to see the regular jerseys. And one more thing to piggyback off, what you said, or a couple of things actually here is Seattle back in their Super Bowl years was one of my favorite crowds ever in my almost 50 years of watching football here. I used to love to watch Seattle whenever I could. They were the loudest crowd in football, one of the loudest crowds I had ever heard, again, for a period of about 5-7 years there. But then I think now you're right, maybe a little complacent, and that is over for a while until the next potential Super Bowl team comes, I guess. I'm with you on the Packers bandwagon too here. I think the Packers are a team that nobody's going to want to play. I think that they could go to the Super Bowl. I don't think they're ready for that just yet, but they can make some noise and they can knock some good teams out here. So, certainly impressed with the way they're playing. Again, I thought Seattle would show up, but again, this is how the NFL works. Seattle basically laid an egg here and didn't play their best and was overwhelmed by a better team. But Seattle has Minnesota, I believe, coming into town for this weekend. I would bet anything that Seattle wins this game against the Vikings on Sunday. Or I think it's a Sunday game, but I would not be surprised at all. But yeah, Jordan Love continues to show up, 229 yards, a couple of touchdowns. But, the total yards here, it was Packers 369, Seahawks 208. So it just seemed like they were never in this game. The score, it's one of those things where even though it was pretty much a lopsided score, I think even that lopsided score it doesn't indicate how much the Packers dominated here. But Seattle's still in it. They could, at least get in the playoffs. And again, I'm thinking they beat the Vikings. So they're not down and out yet, but excellent performance by the Packers. And they're going to be a difficult out next month.
So now we'll direct our attention to our last, but certainly not least, Monday, 8:00 p.m. matchup between the 4-9 Chicago Bears and the 11-2 Minnesota Vikings. With 12:04 left in the first quarter, Will Reichert kicked a 52-yard field goal to bring Minnesota's lead to 3-0. With 5:04 left in the first quarter, Justin Jefferson was moving on up there, catching a 7-yard pass from Sam Darnold, bringing the score to 10-0 Vikings. With 4 seconds left in the half, Riker kicked his second field goal of the evening, this time for 31 yards to close out halftime, 13-0 Vikings. With 7:02 left in the third, Cairo Santos kicked a 39-yard field goal to cut the Vikings lead to 13-3. With 1:38 left in the third, Aaron Jones ran it in for a 1-yard touchdown, breaking the Vikings lead 20-3. With 13 minutes left in the fourth quarter, Santos kicked his second field goal of the evening, this time for 39 yards, cutting the Vikings lead to 20-6. With 10:14 left in the fourth quarter, Cam Akers away ran it in for a 1-yard touchdown, bringing the score to 27-6 Vikings. With 5:19 left in the fourth quarter, Keenan Allen caught a 16-yard pass, for a touchdown, but the 2-point conversion failed, bringing the score to 27-12 Minnesota. With 1:12 left in the game, Reichard sealed it with a 46-yard field goal to bring the score to 30-12 Minnesota. So, Joe, what do you think about the Vikings taking care of business at home and Detroit losing, and now both teams being tied for first place in the NFC North?
Yeah, they're just when you think the Vikings might go away, that they're right there. And again, I think if I looked at the schedule right, and if they're playing Seattle this week, I think Seattle beats them. Now, I thought the Bears would keep this a little closer. I know they're out of it. It's been a disappointing season for them, but I was a little disappointed in their effort. I saw a bunch of white flags waving on the Bears sideline, and just I thought it would be a little bit closer. Great to see Sam Darnold continue. Now, I make a lot of correct predictions, all right, but I'm the one who said back in 2018 the Bills definitely should have got Sam Darnold instead of Josh Allen, and I'll admit that. Not one of my better predictions there. But Sam Darnold is certainly playing like the quarterback everybody expected him to play, back 6 years ago here. So it's great to see him, and I love to see guys like this succeed. And very interesting to see what's going to happen. The Lions have a lot of injuries. I still think the Lions are the better team, and they're going to take the division. But again, the Vikings aren't going away. And they meet, I think, the last game of the season, if I'm not mistaken. So it's going to be very interesting if they go into that game tied. I don't know exactly where the game is, but to have that week 18 game for the division against two of the best teams in the NFL, I think that would be incredible. But and it's not out of the question for the Vikings to take that division. Again, with the Lions injuries and things like that, it's going to be very interesting to see. But excellent game. Just they did their thing. They did what they had to do. Darnold continues to play exceedingly well, and we'll see what happens from there.
And Gene, it's only been Caleb Williams' rookie year, but I think he has shown flashes of what he can be. But one of the things he struggles against is he struggles against man-to-man defenses, but he always has a tendency to pick zone defenses apart. But if he could correct it, do you think he could be their answer at quarterback heading into his sophomore year? Because right now it's hard to judge on his rookie year.
Yeah, it's a hard question to answer, Jamie, because who's going to be his head coach next year? Who's going to be his offensive coordinator? They saddled him with Matt Eberflus. I just you're going to have that investment, or and then they fire his offensive coordinator, so he's not getting the coaching and the guidance. And the first thing they should fix is that offensive line. He's getting cream back there, but he's not turning the ball over. I'll put that. He's not throwing interceptions, so there's something to work with. It is an attractive job, so I'm going to be very curious to see who comes in. And maybe Mike Vrabel is that defensive-minded coach, but I'm sure that's somebody that can come in and get at least a good offensive coordinator to kind of work with him. Joe, to your point on the Vikings, they wrap up in Detroit. So that's going to be – and in Week 18, everything is flexed. I'll tell you right now, that's going to be the Sunday night game in Week 18. Here's probably the division, or perhaps for the top seed, depending on that. I don't know why there is this debate in sports talk and with Viking fans. Where will Sam Darnold play next year? Are you kidding me? Sign Sam Darnold. Like, you are going to be you just don't find quarterbacks who are going to win 13, 14 games like that. Right. Sometimes it takes a little while for a quarterback to figure that out. Look at Baker Mayfield. Showed some flashes in Cleveland. They gave up on him. 3 organizations later, he's got a home in Tampa Bay, and that's going to be a fun team to watch in the playoffs. Same thing with Darnold here. I don't fault him for landing in the Jets drafting him. Well, that didn't work out. Carolina, San Francisco, now it's Minnesota. And the fact that he is a free agent technically last year, the Vikings don't let him get away. You just say, look, we're going to tag you, but let's not do that. Let's sit down and work something out. Oh, but what about J.J. McCarthy? Is J.J. McCarthy going to win you 13, 14 games? Like
I don't think so.
you don't know that. So it's like that's a great luxury to have. If somebody team came knocking, then you trade them. And if not, that's a great person to have on your bench. The way the Vikings move the ball and the way that Brian Flores is coaching up that defense, that's a team that absolutely nobody is talking about going to the Super Bowl. You hear chatter about the Lions for good reason, but now they're banged up. You hear chatter about the Eagles. Well, they've got some like drama with their head coach and their wide receiver, quarterback, all that. They'll figure it out, I'm sure. But for the Vikings, if they win that division and they get the 2 seed, perhaps that's a team I would not want to face this postseason. I think I'm very happy for Sam Darnold that he is figuring it out here in this league.
Yeah, me too. And I think I read somewhere today, even it was that they were talking about that's the step one is just sign him. It's not a bad idea to have a young quarterback waiting in the wings. Did that ever work for Green Bay? I think it has. Mm-hmm. So to have somebody waiting in the wings who can come in if something happens to Sam Darnold or if he gets hurt or something like that, you have somebody and you got him learning there from a veteran. So I agree. I think it would be not the smartest thing to let him go. And no, I don't think JJ McCarthy wins you 13 games right away.
No.
Right. Let's see. Okay. Oh, guess what? It is now that time in our show for a question of the week segment. So, Gene, would you like to give it a try and let me explain how this works since this is your first time on the show? So we do a trivia question, part of the segment where I ask, in this case, it would be you, since you're our guest, a random NFL question that my producer pulled. And you have there's 4 choices, 4 answers to pick from. Only one's the correct answer. If you get it right, congratulations, you got it right. But if you don't get it right, then Joe has a chance to answer it and get it right.
Oh, okay. I thought you would hang up on me if I don't get it right. It'll be some sort of punishment. So.
No, so please get it right so you take the pressure off of me here.
Okay, yeah, I'm feeling the pressure here, Jamie. Fire away, bud.
Okay, Gene, here's your first Bubble Sports Conversation Room trivia question. Can you guess this NFL quarterback? He was a one-time Pro Bowler, a first-round pick, coached the Super Bowl, and I want to add now he's coaching an NFL team now. Is it Frank Reich, Doug Peterson, John Harbaugh, or Jim Harbaugh?
Wow. Did Jim Harbaugh go to a Super Bowl as a quarterback? All right, I'm going to go with Doug Peterson, Jamie.
Nope. Joe, you want me to repeat the question?
No, I think I knew this question even before you gave the choices. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to be right, but I am going to say Jim Harbaugh.
You got it. It was Jim Harbaugh. He went to the Pro Bowl with the Colts, lost the AFC Championship game to the Steelers, and was coached by Ted Marchibroda, former Buffalo Bills offensive coordinator. He was the Colts head coach then. So, fun fact, a little nugget of history there. We have a program note to report. We will be off the next 2 weeks with Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve falling on Tuesday, but happy to announce that we will be back on Tuesday, January 7th at 8 o'clock p.m. So this was our last show for 2024. Anyway, well, it looks like we come to the end of our show. So, Joe, where can we find you on this last show of 2024 on Tuesday, December 17th?
God, you just said something that shocked me here. Our last show, now we've done baseball, we've done football, our last show of 2024. Very hard to believe. But great things to look forward to next year. But Joe Dow Sports is my Twitter X handle, and I just put my 2 cents worth in on various sports there.
Gee, tell us where we can find you.
So in the Odyssey app, 3 to 6 weekday afternoons, The Fan Rochester. The show is called The Sports Bar, or on X, The Fan Rochester is like Joe, dishing out takes when they pop into my head there. So.
Okay. Anyway, you can find me, yours truly, on Bill's Chat 1 at Bill's Mafia Chat, and also at Jamie Malloy, the unbiased journalist, at DJ Dawkins on X, and theforkball.com, where I write about all sports. Please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like, comment, and ring the bell for notifications. For more content on Driving to the Top Productions, please visit our YouTube page, Twitch stream, Facebook stream, X stream, wherever you could consume your podcasts. And we would like to thank our special guest, Gene Battaglia, for coming on our show with all his Buffalo Bills knowledge. Thank you very much, Gene. In fact, you did so well. We would love to have you on again whenever you're free.
Oh, thanks. Thank you for having me, Jamie. Joe, this was a lot of fun. And Jamie, I better see you around the Manning and Napier Gymnasium at St. John Fisher pretty soon, buddy.
You will on Sunday the 29th and the 30th.
Okay, I'll see you on the 30th, bud. So
excellent. We appreciate you joining us.
Tournament. But anyway, thank you very much for listening. And remember, folks, Josh Allen pretty much solidified his nomination for MVP. Who do you think should be the number one team in the NFC North, Detroit or Minnesota? And do you think Patrick Mahomes will be starting this week or for the rest of the regular season with his high ankle sprain? And that's a development to keep an eye on throughout the season and the playoffs. But one thing is definitely for sure, to quote our great friend at ESPN and probably one of the big Bills fans in the national media, Chris Berman, nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. See you next week, folks.
All right. Have a great week, everybody.
2, 1.